Michigan got a huge commitment on Tuesday evening. It was a little bit more dramatic than I think anyone wanted it to be, but what's recruiting without a little drama? With Andrew Marsh, the 4-star wide receiver, the highest rated wide receiver to commit to Michigan since 2017, in that big year with the 4 receivers that committed. So let's talk about that, as well as more reasons why Michigan, at least with a lot of the projections here in the offseason, is probably going to be better than people think, intertwined with a very negative prediction for the Michigan 2024 season. On this episode of Locked On Wolverines.
You are Locked On Wolverines, your daily podcast on the Michigan Wolverines, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Happy Wednesday. We are back and doing it. Locked On Wolverines podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. I'm your man on the ground, Isaiah Hole, publisher of Wolverines Wire through USA Today Sports Media Group. And yesterday, Andrew Marsh commits to Michigan, 4-star out of Katy, Texas, or Fulshear, Texas, technically. Katy Jordan High School out of Fulshear and Katy are neighbors. So, all right, hold on. I had my screen up. It refreshed, and it's being very weird. It's trying to give me. It's putting 2 web pages above each other that aren't supposed to be there. So I can't look at the notes that I had here for a second. All right, there we go. I think. Great start, guys. It's computer problems right out the gates. Okay, cool. So 4-star across the board, Andrew Marsh. Highest ranking comes via Rivals, where he has fallen a little bit. He was number 43 in the country. He's dropped down to 60 in the country. He's the highest rated wide receiver by position, and both the 24/7 Sports Composite and as well as ESPN, where he's the 9th best in the country. On 3 is the most bearish on him, as the 168, 24 in the position group, and 27 in the state of Texas. Everyone else is in the 60s or so. So certainly one of the best wideouts that Michigan has gotten. According to Gabe Brooks from 24/7 Sports, he's explosive, productive, with a lean, wiry, strong, and impressive athletic markers in high jump, vertical, and broad jump categories. Does kind of long range track and field, 400-meter dash, and he's running in the 50.5s. So, or actually, freshman who's 50.24. So he's gotten a little slower, but watching some of his game film is on Huddle there. It's funny because he doesn't look that fast when he's going through his initial route, but once he gets the ball in his hands, man, he bursts. Like where it says explosive production, a productive receiver, that's it. I mean, Gabe Brooks continues. Frequent big play merchant, thanks largely to slippery strength and athleticism in run after catch situations. Unorthodox in gait and play style, but fights through tackles and maintains balance to get extra yardage despite slighter frame. So he can obviously grow. He's 6'1", so he's my height, and 175 pounds according to the rankings right now. And he's a guy that can obviously get bigger. And it's maybe not going to get much taller unless you just pump him full of some milk, get those hormones going. Still young, so but definitely has good size, right? 6'1" isn't necessarily like you want like a 6'3" guy, 6'4", but you're not really going to scoff at 6'1", especially with the way this team is built, and guys shorter than me tend to be Michigan's most productive wide receivers generally. Or like Roman Wilson was like 5'11". He might have been listed at 6'1", but I think he was like a little bit shorter than I am. And certainly what you see on tape is a guy that's bursting through, or like he's surrounded by players, gets the ball in his hands, and then before you know it, somehow he's in the open field. There's one play in particular where he literally has 7 guys surrounding him. And then they all end up chasing him. You just see all these white jerseys behind him. It's just absolutely wild. So I think as far as the usage, obviously Michigan, and this kind of plays into just kind of the grander themes of what Michigan currently is. No, it's not necessarily going to be like a extremely pass happy offense, but certainly that doesn't mean that there can't be a really good pass game any given year. A lot of the last couple of years, because keep in mind they got 2 receivers drafted this last year. Roman Wilson more so than Cornelius Johnson. No one was lining up against these guys from a national perspective. Like, you're not seeing like the starting lineup and then seeing the Michigan receivers and necessarily shuddering if you're the opposition. You feel like, okay, well, I love to bring things back to the 2004 Pistons. I remember in 2003 watching that same Pistons team in a bar in Los Angeles. And they're showing the starting lineups as they were about to take on whoever they were taking on in the first round that year. And being like, oh, they can't like seeing those faces, not understanding that like probably no one necessarily feared Chauncey Billups and Rip Hamilton at that point. But generally, that's kind of it, right? Like if you just start like listing a bunch of guys that you don't want to face, I don't know that Michigan's wide receivers scare you a lot, but when have they ever, even in the last like 3 years? Like keeping in mind, like some of the meat of the schedule in 2021 in the middle of the year, like Roman Wilson was out with injury. So and so was Ronnie Bell. So your receivers were who? It was Cornelius. It was Mikey Sainer still. It was Dalen Baldwin. And Michigan still managed to keep winning throughout the year. So that doesn't mean it can't take another step forward, and Andrew Marsh goes a long way to doing that. Now, obviously there was some drama yesterday with suddenly Washington, Steve Wiltfong post like, Washington's coming to calling. And suddenly everybody just kind of on 3 board, Mason Blue Review board, which I am now on as well. So shout out to Josh Henschke. But you start seeing people be like, uh-oh. And I understand because I was a Michigan fan in, 2012, 2013, whatever year that was, could have been 2014, I'm not sure. Deshaun Hand, everyone's saying like, yep, he's in the bag. Mike Farrell, then at Rivals, being like, yep, Michigan's my pick. And I'm like, all right, let's just watch him pick Michigan. And then the utter shock of him picking Alabama. I feel like that lives in the collective consciousness of Michigan fans quite often. But at the same time, it's hard to undo all of the groundwork that was laid. I understand someone can come in last second and sway a kid. But generally, if it's like everyone thinks it's the school, another school might come calling and they might be like, listen, like, we're going to make a last second push. I feel like this was just added drama to a recruitment, and we just haven't seen that very often. So good on Ron Bellamy for closing out. Michigan climbs up the number 12 class in the 24/7 Sports Team rankings. So it's long gone are the days where everyone's like, LOL, Michigan's ranked in the 40s. It's like, yeah, when you have 3 commits, that's probably the case. Now they got 17. We'll see where that number goes. I'm guessing it's not going to be like 24. It's going to probably end up being like 21. They need to close with Babalola. Be nice if they can get Nathaniel Owusu-Boateng. I mean, they need linebackers. And then are they able to flip some guys? E.J. Holland saying that Shamari Earls, they're still keeping in touch with him. I don't know how likely Michigan's able to do something there, but when you consider the fact that out of the 17 commits, 0 5 stars, 14 4 stars, 3 3 stars, it's a pretty impressive start. If they can keep adding 4-star types, get a 5-star like Babalola, I mean, this could end up being, at least per recruit, one of Michigan's best classes of all time. It's very impressive what Sharon Moore's been able to do. All right, we're going to continue on. I want to get to some, I don't know how to describe this. I know I've got a lot of meandering ways of speaking lately here. Broader points that I fail to communicate in the short term. But I want to talk about ESPN has a first-round mock draft. Yet, given what they think Michigan's capable of putting into the NFL in the early rounds, that I feel there's some cognitive dissonance between that and what ESPN also thinks Michigan's going to do this season in terms of its postseason. So we will get to that here in just a moment. But before we do, you know what? It's a beautiful day. It feels like fall outside. I'm looking forward to getting outside, taking Zuri for a nice long walk. But there's another thing that you can do if you want to go outside, and that's go to the ballpark. You have another month and a half to do that, so take advantage of it. But if it's not the ballpark, there's Pine Knob. I missed a really big show at Pine Knob I wished I could have gone to, and with Sammy Hagar and Joe Satriani and playing Van Halen songs. Anyway, Gametime has a new feature. That's where this all leads to. Gametime has a new feature called Gametime Picks. Makes getting tickets for your favorite live events even easier. Gametime Picks filters out all the fluff to show you only the incredible deals on great seats so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. They've got 50% off coming out on Labor Day for certain games like Diamondbacks and Dodgers if you're somewhere out west. So many different things that I would want to go see. Let's do one together because that's always a fun thing to do. I know it takes time, but we're gonna learn together. It's always a good way to go if I can get my browser to work correctly. Last time we did this, it worked out really, really well. So let's say Detroit Lions. I think that's probably a good way to go. Tampa Bay Buccaneers at Detroit Lions. Rematch of the preseason here. So I'm looking at some of the deals they have here. You can get into the door for $188. That's actually pretty incredible for what the Lions are right now. You want to sit in the lower? I can get you lower level corner for $302. That is also a fantastic deal. But yeah, there's a bunch of different deals here. Whether you're looking at upper level, you're looking at mid level, you can find the views from your seat, all kinds of different things here. So here's the thing with Gametime Picks, the curation that it has makes it easier for you to save more on sports, comedy, theater, concerts, all of that and more. So take the guesswork out of buying concert and game tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account. Redeem the code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. One more thing. You've heard us all talk a lot about FanDuel, America's #1 sports book, and we all have, I keep on saying we all. I don't know where that's coming from. But we have something a little different for you. Now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 to get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Considering that NFL Sunday Ticket goes for like $700, that is massive. So then with a YouTube TV base plan, you can still watch every regular season Sunday afternoon out-of-market game. All you need is a Google account and a current form of payment. You can cancel at any time. Just visit FanDuel.com/lockdown to download America's #1 sportsbook. I know I am so long-winded sometimes, especially with the advertisements. My apologies. All right, so ESPN. I said they have cognitive dissonance, and that's because I have cognitive dissonance. Because ESPN put out two things within the last 24 hours. One was, hey, here's where every team is going as far as their bowl game is concerned. And then there's also, hey, here's our first round draft, mock draft before the college season starts. And I understand these are different people working on things, but Michigan is tied with Ohio State, who is certainly like the leader. And I don't think that they necessarily had Ohio State winning the championship as a consensus or anything, but certainly they had Ohio State highly ranked in the playoff. And Ohio State has 4 first-round draft picks. Most of them come after Michigan's first couple draft picks at least. And they have 4 guys getting picked from Michigan. 3 defensive, 1 offensive. You know who they are. So here's what it is. Will Johnson at 6, Mason Graham at 7, Colston Loveland reuniting with Jim Harbaugh at number 18, and Kenneth Grant at number 31. So out of all the other schools, and I listed them here, Georgia has 3 guys, Texas has 3 guys, LSU has 3 guys, Arizona 3, Colorado 2, Tennessee 1, Texas A&M 1, Notre Dame 1, Mizzou 1, Kentucky 1, Penn State 1, Florida State 1, Alabama 1, Arkansas 1, Nebraska 1. As far as the amount of that schools that have representation in this first round NFL mock draft. So of those, the most of them that are have multiple selections, not all, because like Arizona's a top 25 team, rightfully so, new coach and all that, but really a lot of talent. LSU, I mean, they're always a hype beast, but who knows what they'll be. Colorado is the other one, which they're a hype beast despite, I understand they have high-end talent at the top. The rest of the team around them, maybe not so good. But for the rest, you look at the top 4. 4 from Michigan, 4 from Ohio State, 3 from Georgia, 3 from Texas. In the last 2 years, all 4 of those teams have been in the 4-team college football playoff. So they are high-level teams perennially. Yet, ESPN predicts Michigan will not make the 12-team playoff this year. Instead, it has Michigan going to Orlando, which I will never complain about going to Orlando. I like going to Orlando, as you all know. I go at least once a year to Disney, visit my friend Luke, and we do all kinds of stuff. But you all know Luke DeMello. I know you all know Luke DeMello. But Michigan going to the Citrus Bowl to play either a Tennessee team that didn't make the playoff, and that's their, like Michigan, their big prize, or an Ole Miss team that made the playoff but lost in the first round and then finishes out the year playing in the Citrus Bowl. I don't see it. And the thing is, and I want to pull this up to kind of look at it more while we talk this through. I don't see it because it's like, how are you going to have 4 first-round guys, especially in the high end, and then say, like, yeah, they're clearly one of the most talented, like, not just one of the most talented teams in college football, but has crazy high-end talent. And they're going to end up being like 8-4 and going there. Maybe they think 9-3. They don't elucidate on this. But with the college football playoff, for instance, here, they have let's look at the other teams that are on that list. They have Alabama at number 6. Oregon, who doesn't have any first-round draft picks, is at number 5. I find that hard to believe. I feel like Dylan Gabriel should probably be on there, but maybe I'm wrong. Florida State, who has, one pick. They have as the number 3 team, actually, or 4 team, depending on who you look at. Ohio State's either number 1 or number 2. Texas is either number 6 or number 7, depending on which guy you're looking at. I think that's crazy. I think that's crazy behavior, as I tell Zuri all the time. To think like, okay, yeah, it's they're gonna have 4 guys. Like anytime you look back at like teams that have 3, 4, 5 guys go in the first round, it's like 2022 Georgia. It's like Alabama coming off of a national championship. Ohio State's gonna have that regardless. It tends to, and as it tends to, even if it doesn't make the playoff, it's still like at worst a 2-loss team. So maybe they're seeing Michigan as a 2-loss team in what would normally be a 4-team scenario, but this is a 12-team scenario, and you still don't think Michigan's going to be able to go beyond this lesser tier. Now, the Citrus Bowl is one of the higher tiers. It's basically the highest tier that you can get now when it's not the playoff. If you're in the Big Ten, right? Because everything else is like all the New Year's Six is all tied in with the playoff and all of that. But I just have a hard time seeing it. I think I have a lot of cognitive dissonance as I try to make sense of where it has Michigan going in this grand scheme. Like, to me, you can't have 4 first-round picks and not be one of the best 12 teams in the country. To me, that just doesn't make any sense. Like, you're saying that, like, the biggest portion that you can have essentially on the team is beyond the elite of the elite, and you still think that that's not good enough to beat who? Who are the other teams that are in this? Like, that's see, Zuri agrees. It's not good enough to beat Utah. I mean, come on. I understand Utah's expected to win the Big 12, but let's just be real. All right, let's continue talking about this because I just think it's crazy stuff. So we will do that here in just a moment. But before we do, it's still summertime, and that means it is still barbecue season. Barbecue season can go well beyond summertime. So obviously you got tailgates coming up. Stock up on all your grilling favorites and earn cash back on every purchase when you use Ibotta. So you won't have to choose between burgers or hot dogs. You can get both. Ibotta is a free app that lets you earn cash back every time you shop. Earn on hundreds of items from groceries to beauty supplies, even toys. So you could even make sure you're beating inflation no matter what you are purchasing. The average Ibotta user earns $256 per year. That could cover the cost of an entire shopping trip, that flight you're eyeing, or even a fancy dinner that you have been craving. Other apps will give you points that don't amount to much. With Ibotta, you earn cash back that you can withdraw to your bank account, PayPal, or to gift cards. Simply add offers in the app, upload your receipt, and voila, the money is yours. You can save on over 2,400 brands and shop at over 1,000 retailers, including your favorite grocery stores, Lowe's, Macy's, Sephora, Best Buy, and more. Like that they put Sephora and Best Buy right next to each other. It's like where Sarah wants to shop and where I want to shop. It's time that you joined the over 50 million users who I messed myself up there. Over the 50 million users who use Ibotta to earn cash back every time they shop. Right now, Ibotta is offering our listeners $5 just for trying Ibotta by using the code LOCKEDONCollege when you register. Just go to the App Store or Google Play Store and download the free Ibotta app to start earning cash back and use the code LOCKEDONCollege. That's IBOTTA in the Google Play or App Store and use the code LOCKEDONCollege. So I realized as we're talking about this ESPN stuff is that I was still doing research and then I stopped because I was on Mike Fitzpatrick's podcast, so I checked that out when that drops. And I was still researching it, so I was going back and I was going to give you hard evidence of like, see, Georgia in the 2022 draft and you know, this is how many this had in this draft and all of that. There's a correlation obviously between teams that have like a lot of talent and their ability to win. So you can't tell me that Michigan has 4 guys that are like worthy of going in the earliest of the NFL draft. And I understand that it takes more than 4. Michigan will have a lot of other guys that aren't on this list. You know, Jayshon Barham, Donovan Edwards. I'm sure at least 1 or 2 linemen. Giovanni Alhadi certainly could be on that list. Josh Preeb. I mean, either the defensive edge rushing guys could go. Ernest Hausman could decide to leave early. The safeties, you know, there's a bunch of safeties that could go. There's a lot of talent across the board. Michigan's not going to just have 4 draft picks and they all happen to be first rounders. They'll have like 7, 8, 9, something like that. And that will be dependent on kind of how far Michigan's able to go and who declares early. But it seems like insane to me to sit there and say like, yeah, they're going to have that many first rounders and they're going to make a lesser tier bowl. That's not happening. Because if they have that many guys that play that well this year, because they're not going to fall off a cliff and then get drafted in the first round based off of previous potential. It just is, that is not how things tend to work. So either Michigan plays extremely well, gets 4 first round picks, or Michigan goes to a lesser tier bowl and maybe 1 or 2 of those guys still end up being first rounders. Okay. That's essentially how that's going to work. All right. We're going to spend the last couple minutes here because we do have a few minutes left. I want to finally kind of address something. I'm saving this for the end. So for those of you who pay closer attention, I made this announcement actually weirdly on the Sporting News podcast, and I'll just share here. It's like a week and a half later. The documentary Time Stealer is coming out next week, and yeah, I'm in it. So what does that tell you? Well, I mean, we'll get much deeper into a lot of this stuff after the documentary airs, but I'm just going to give you a wink here, like a literal one. and also a figurative one. And you can guess if I'm in the Sign Stealer documentary, who was my source? Because I've always said, like, I'll tell you my sources and I'll tell you the things that I know when I know them and when I can. So I'm in this documentary. The plan for next week was to have Connor on the show. It doesn't look like that's going to happen now. Just based off of, like, he wants to do it, but it's like with the NCAA investigation ongoing, we're likely pushing that back to a later date. So stay tuned. We will eventually have him on. Basically at the earliest opportunity that he's doing any kind of press. But what we will do next week is discuss Sign Stealer on that Tuesday, and then and as well as my embarrassment of it not being in it, but more so like having it where it's like you all watch this and you know what this show's all about, right? Like we have a rapport. I might not know you as much as you know me, but we have a rapport. But it's a different thing when it's like everyone's gonna watch that. So there's a personal thing. Because like I said, I'm not necessarily as comfortable receiving attention. And I understand people aren't watching for me; they're watching for Connor and to learn all of that stuff. But yes, I am in it, and we will discuss that next week on Tuesday. Everything that is said in it, and then we can maybe finally elucidate on some things. I mean, I feel like I kind of have already kind of told you everything, but maybe it's not been quite as linear. But I'll tell you a little bit of the story of just kind of how things went down. If the documentary, which I haven't seen yet, I'm hoping that I'll get to see it beforehand. But I feel like I can at least say, yes, I'm in it. I mean, they showed Dave Portnoy's in it. So it'll be interesting to see how this all is received, essentially. But there you go. If you hadn't figured out where I've gotten a lot of my information, not all of my information. I actually had decided to go back to the good old source journalism thing when all that happened, out of necessity of understanding kind of everything that was being shared in the media and all of that. But yeah, there's a reason why I'm in the documentary, and you'll see that next week. So we filmed that back in early April, I think, at the either spring ball had just started, but I think before we had interviews. So it's been a while. It's been in the making, but yeah, exciting stuff. Anyway, that's going to do it for us today. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. We will talk to you again mañana, as Sarah would say. Peace.